Hang on. Welcome to GalaxyCon Talks Muppets, Take 2. I forgot to hit the live button. Normally, we're GalaxyCon Talks Comics, but today we have a special guest, Patty.
Absolutely. He is an incredible talent. We've had him as a guest at the show several times. He has been involved in Star Wars, Star Trek, the Muppets, various other creative pursuits. He is a writer. He is a director. He is a creature maker. He is an all-around incredibly creative and fun guy. And in his honor, I wear a Hawaiian shirt. Let's please welcome the legend and hero of a guy named Kevin Feige. We'll go into that a little bit because it's a really fun story. Please welcome Kirk Thatcher.
Hey, guys.
Oh, my God. What the hell?
Yeah, coronavirus. It's...
No.
Fair.
Oh,
yeah,
no.
I know I've lost some weight. I hope that's not too upsetting.
Is this what happens when you work on the Curious Creations of Christine McDonald?
Yes, actually, good call. This is from that. Hey, everybody. This is actually in an episode where she put a hat on a hat stand, and so we made this. This is a skull that I own because I'm me, and my art director Darcy put it on a production designer put it on an old lamp stand, and so now I have this bizarre skull lamp stand that I'll probably turn into a lamp at some point. Anyway, hi, Kermit.
Hi.
Hi. Where is he? There he is.
He's right there. We see him. I got his friend right here.
I saw that. I'm very honored.
I think I found the Curious Creations of Christine McDonald like about 6 months ago.
Oh, really?
Netflix, just rambling around, and I didn't know you were attached to it. I didn't know anything about it. I just pressed play, and then really enjoyed it.
Thank you. It was great. Christine's amazing, and I created the show kind of with her and for her, and directed all of them. And was the showrunner? It was a great job, and because she's an amazing person and was fun to work with, and we did it in an incredibly short amount of time. And now she's got her own Patreon, which I'm jealous. She just kind of does whatever she wants and makes money and doesn't have to deal with networks or notes or development execs or any of that. It's literally her husband shoots it. She creates the stuff on camera and they edit it, and the husband does the music, and it's a two-person show, and she owns her own name and label. It's great. I'm going to do something like that, except it won't be a how-to show. It'll be a crazy kid-style show, I think. In fact, it's what the hat and the Hawaiian shirts are all about. We can get into
that. Yeah, you've been branding yourself like that for a while. And by the way, it's a great look for you.
Well, when your name's Kirk, Captain kind of followed. I'm lazy and I like the beard because I don't have to shave every day. So I just sort of fell into it.
Well, you could be still running around dressed as the punk from Star Trek 4. So
you know what? For my 60th birthday, which is a few years away, I was thinking of doing the mohawk, dyeing it orange, doing it again, just for what the hell, why not?
Hopefully in a couple of years, we'll be back in the live convention business. And if you do that, you come to our shows and we'll do that as a photo op. Right, Mike?
Exactly.
Yes, absolutely.
I think I have to get my punk jacket taken out a bit. I think I weigh almost 90 pounds. Well, not almost 90 pounds more than I did then, but it's experience. It adds gravitas and us.
And indeed, for our audience that may not be aware, Kirk has been an associate producer. He was associate producer on Star Trek 4. That's correct. That was the official title.
Yeah.
Did a lot of stuff. He was the voice of the computer screen that Spock goes through, wound at 1.5 times speed.
Yeah, I wrote the questions and then recorded them because Leonard wanted something to play to, because, he wasn't just going to play to, and he didn't want the script supervisor. He wanted a little more method, like what is going to be. So I recorded them, and we were going to just use it as a scratch track. And then in post-production, they said, well, what do you want? Who do you want to do the voice? He goes, I'll just use that. So yeah, I suddenly had 3 parts in the movie. They didn't give me credit for it because my name would have been the credits 4 times, but yeah.
And you snuck you recently revealed this on your Facebook. This was an Easter egg nobody knew of. You snuck a Star Wars reference into that.
Yeah, T. Plana Hoth, matron of Vulcan philosophy, is Planet Hoth with the T just put in front of plan. And nobody caught, although I revealed that on May the 4th this year. And a number of people on Twitter were like, oh, I knew that. It made me laugh.
I knew that along.
I totally knew that. And then other people said, that's not how they spell it in the Star Trek encyclopedia. They say it's Plana or whatever. How do they spell it? And I'm like, well, I wrote it, so I think I know.
Yeah, then I think the encyclopedia needs to be addended.
Anyway. But there I am.
So that's you as a very young man.
23 or 24, I guess.
So so you came to Star Trek after having worked for Lucasfilm.
Yeah, I worked at ILM on Jedi and a little bit on Poltergeist and E.T. and on Star Treks 2 and 3, actually. I did the creature, the molding and casting. I didn't sculpt or design anything on 2 or 3, but I did help build the SETI eels, and I helped cast and then performed, actually, the Klingon dog, the dog lizard. I forgot what he's called. The
Targ.
A Targ. Yeah, so I was under Chris Lloyd's seat. My right arm stuck through a hole in it on the side with my arm wedged into this rubber fake dog body. So I did that, and then I puppeteered. There's actually a picture of me in Cinefex when Krug has is it Krug? That was his character,
yes.
Right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. He's got this like worm thing that came from Spock's coffin that because of the Genesis effect. So I'm there puppeteering it, and I'm got a Tyvek suit on because there was Methicel, which is like slime, was all over it, and it's just dripping on us. So there's a picture of me with short hair in Cinefex. It's one of the few pictures of me doing anything on any of those jobs.
Well, I do have another picture of you from your days as I guess you were a bounty hunter. You hunted. Apparently, you were hunting Mon Calamari.
Yeah, I was. I got a lot of money for those heads.
Collecting heads.
Yeah, that was me on Jedi. I painted all of those. I set up the paint shop in Marin at the Creature Shop because there was one in London and one in Marin. And London mainly did Jabba, obviously, and it was a huge job. And the Ewoks and Bib Fortuna, and we pretty much did everything else. So yeah, I painted a lot of the creatures, and most of them actually. If it was more than a one-off, I usually did all the multiples.
Wow. So how did you start working with Nimoy?
Well, I was at ILM for about 2.5 years, then worked on Gremlins about 2 years, and then Gremlins for about a year. Then started doing rock videos with David Fincher up in San Francisco. He and I and my girlfriend at the time formed a company. And then I moved to LA and started back at UCLA. So I'd gone for UCLA for one trimester in 1980, and then started on Jedi in early 81. And then went back to UCLA to study computer graphics because I said, well, this is going to take over seeing what they had done on Young Sherlock and Star Trek 3. Mm-hmm. I said, this is going to be very important in filmmaking and particularly in effects. So I was taking classes there, and one day, and again, this was about January, February, and I guess it was 84? It was either 84 or 85. I guess it was 85. That sounds right. I don't know. I was 23. It was a while ago. And so someone came to the animation workshop and said that Paramount is looking for an assistant for Leonard Nimoy for Star Trek 4. He had directed Star Trek 3, and he was doing 4, and he wanted someone who knew special effects. and the filmmaking. And so, I mean, I've literally just been at ILM for 2 years. I've done Gremlins, I've done a bunch of rock videos as a production designer with Dave Fincher. So they came to me, the TA said, you sound like you'd be, at least the right kind of guy. So I met with Leonard and we hit it off. And I literally was tailor-made for the job he wanted. He wanted someone on his team that knew effects and knew the ins and outs of production. And that was exactly what I'd been doing. So he hired me. I started as his assistant, and about halfway through, he said they wanted to give me a promotion because I was being more than as an assistant. He wanted to call me assistant director, but that's a specific title with the DGA. So he ended up calling me, saying, we're going to make you an associate producer. And I said, dude, I don't care. I love this. You can call me chief cook and bottle washer. But so that's how I got that. And then all the other little bits I got just from being around Leonard and helping him. So that's how I met Leonard. I interviewed with him. They were looking, I remember he told me they met someone who'd graduated from Harvard, someone who'd gone to USC Film School, and myself, 3 or 4 different candidates. And he said, I kind of knew. I just was almost genetically engineered to do the job he wanted. So it was great. And good friends.
And again, considering how well that film came out. And then, of course, which is so odd, this has kind of become your, I guess, your signature sort of thing that you're known for. And then, but weirdly enough, but then when people start going into your history, like, oh my God, this guy's had his finger on everything.
Yeah, I just have ADHD and I can't stick with one job for very long.
that mohawk has been haunting you your entire life.
It was a comfortable haircut. What's funny was I had a short version of one a few years earlier, but not that tall. I just had kind of basically shaved sides with like an 1.5 inch, 2 inch buzz cut, and it had been dyed orange, but not that bright. It hadn't been bleached. It was just sort of orange over my natural color. So that was, we went for it, as they say, for that.
And that was you singing in your band, right?
Yeah, that was my song, and I wrote it and sang it. And then the band was just the sound effects guys. Mark Mangini, who won an Oscar finally. He'd been nominated a number of times. Won an Oscar for Fury Road, Mad Max movie. And then 2 of the other sound engineers at his company. And we just recorded in the hallway to sound like a crappy, what real punk was like back then. Like the Canada Dead Kennedys and True Son TSOL and the Dickies. A lot of the stuff, the West Coast bands that I grew up listening to and liking, sort of the anarchy and the snarkiness. There was always tongue in cheek, particularly Dickies and Dead Kennedys. Yeah, had a sense of kind of sarcastic irony, and that's what I tried to put in the song.
That's what I knew more than a couple of punk kids at the time who were like on the hunt trying to figure out what it was, because it sounded authentic, 100%.
Yeah, I still have people trying to find. Finally, they released it on an album, a comprehensive CD of all the music from Star Trek 4, Leonard Rosenman's score, and the Yellow Jackets, and the I Hate You tune. So and there's a great punk band called Boldly Go that covers it, and they very kindly asked for my permission, and I said, sure, guys. So I'm actually thinking of writing like 4 other Star Trek punks, maybe Star Wars related punk songs, and doing a little mini album, just to sell for like $8-10 on the download.
Yeah,
I'm sure once 2 people download it, it'll all be free and everyone will just steal it. So it's not really a big money maker, but it'll be fun.
Well, Patty will give you $20.
Yes.
All right.
Hey, Patty.
I'll sign it then. I'll sign your download files.
Come on, you could be a star on Dr. Demento.
That's true. I love Doctor. I grew up with Dr. Demento. I got to meet Weird Al a couple years ago. What a great guy. Somebody he's not that much older than I am, but man, he looks good. He looks like,
well, between the yoga and the veganism,
yeah, it's true. Those vegans don't age. Adjusting all that dead cow just really takes it out of you, I guess.
Well, we gotta die something.
So after all that, you kind of end up in Muppet Land.
Yeah, well, an effects producer at an effects company in LA her husband, they divorced at this point, was Jim Frawley, the guy who directed the first Muppet movie. And she and I had become friends. And I showed her, actually, this is one of the creatures. I showed her this show I was pitching, and I designed a bunch of creatures for it. And it was going to be like a live action. It's a space show with mainly creatures and just a couple humans in it. And she said, you know who'd love that is Jim Henson. And she, would you like to meet him? I said, yeah. She goes, well, I know him because my husband directed the first Muppet movie. So long story short, I met Jim from her introduction, and we hit it off, and I started working with him freelancing. So this was, I think it was summer of '86. There you go. That's me with my pretty hair.
Look at that head of hair.
There. So see in the background, you can see the guy I just held up right above me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then the other two are right there. The like lizard looking one and the chameleon.
That is a handsome head of hair, sir.
Isn't that? Yeah, women used to stop me. I would go into like Macy's or Bloomie's in New York, and these women, the very New York, would be, "Oh my God, what do you do? Your hair is I wish I had your hair. I'm so jealous. Like, be part Italian and part Scottish. I don't know. I know. I look cute there. I'd date me. Yeah. So that was me working at Henson. I went to New York and worked. Well, I freelanced for that first year, and then '88 I moved to New York and stayed there for about a year and 2 months, working on the Jim Henson Hour, and then moved back to LA because Jim. This was how generous and kind Jim was. He wanted to just keep me on. I said, "Well, you don't have any gigs." He's like, "Yeah, but I like having you around as an idea guy and all that." So here's Waldo. That's one of the things I designed. That Jim loved technology. Obviously, he was always pushing it, much like Lucas was in the digital realm. Jim was always pushing puppetry, and this was the first that I know of digitally controlled puppet. So it's a computer-generated puppet controlled with a Waldo system, which became the Jim Henson HDPS system, or Henson Digital Performance System. And Waldo was our first foray into that for the Jim Henson Hour. Guy, you did your research. And so moved back to LA.
You got to say, Mike is a Muppets aficionado. So
okay. Well, I'm learning that.
I'll out him on that right now.
Listen, Patty, we know how much of a nerd you are.
Yes.
You're both nerdy, okay? You're both pretty and you're both nerdy.
We all three of us listen to Dr. Demento in our bedrooms.
That's what I love about cons. People are like, "Oh, why do you go to conventions?" I said, because it's like high school reunion with people you didn't go to high school with, but you have more in common with than most of the people you went to high school with. Because we all have really similar interests and somewhat backgrounds, although you do meet people who are from completely different cultures, but there's still that passion for and what's weird is you don't feel unusual there, but then when you go to a party with your lawyer friends or something, you're the odd man out. You're like, oh, that's right, I forgot. I forgot I'm unusual.
Oh yeah, at parties it's always, Patty, what's the name of that character, the hero in that movie, the guy? Yeah, that's your stuff, right? Yeah.
Well,
that's my job.
As Patty will tell you, yes, I am a bit of a, and look, between Muppets, Star Trek, and Star Wars, if you had done anything on Planet of the Apes with those other three, I think my wife would be concerned.
Yeah, that was a little before my time. And then the last one where they did it with Rick Baker's I'd gotten out of Creatures at that point. But yeah, those were big movies too, and big influences growing up. That Johnny Chambers makeup on the first.
Oh God, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you go to LA.
Oh, so I went to LA, then worked on RoboCop 2 with Phil Tippett for about 6 months. Then got a job at Disney Imagineering right about the time the Henson Company. So I still in touch with Henson's and everything, but I just didn't want to take Jim's money just to hang around. Also, New York was expensive. So I went up to worked on RoboCop 2, came back to LA and started working at Disney Imagineering, designing a futuristic version of Tomorrowland. The Carousel Progress was going to be turned into a space carnival, like a crashed spaceship that was like a traveling UFO space carnival. Very much like What America Sings was, but with aliens and all that. So I grabbed Tony McVeigh or recommended him, who was one of the main sculptors, designers on Jedi.
Yeah.
And he sculpted the Gremlin for Gremlins 1. And recently he's been working on Mandalorian and the last few Star Wars movies up at ILM. So he and I designed creatures for that, and then it never happened. But while while we were working on that, Henson was making a deal with Disney to be sold, to have the Muppet franchise or the whole Henson organization sold. So I was also consulting on a couple Muppet rides that they were going to do. They were going to have a Muppet movie ride, and that was the main one I did consulting on. So I was in Imagineering, staying in touch with Henson's and designing and brainstorming Dinosaurs with Jim. So that was the last thing we worked on. We had done 2 rounds of, I just had my second meeting with him on the character designs when he passed away about 4 days later. Which was obviously shocking for anyone who knew him, but particularly I'd just seen him on a Friday, and I think he passed away on a Tuesday. And
the character designs for Dinosaurs?
Yeah, those are the character designs for Dinosaurs. And I did those, and then he passed away, and then Disney was still interested in doing the show. There he is. The Dinosaurs on the right there. I'm the hillbilly.
Well, before you leave the Dinosaurs thing.
No.
So you worked on Dinosaurs for a while.
Yeah, for about 3 years. I designed the characters, most of the characters, the whole family, and then Pete Brook designed Roy, the T-Rex, and Kevin Boyle designed the other 3 kind of sidekick work buddies because I was busy enough with the share the love a little bit. And they were great designers, still are great designers. Pete Brook runs the Creature Shop now.
So Dinosaurs, that finale is one of the most amazing things I think I ever saw on TV.
Well, it's interesting. So I had written this script about the Bunch Beetles. You can see one down. In fact, if you notice a similarity, I have a certain design aesthetic. So these beetles, the idea was it was about trying to solve environmental disasters with bad thinking. And the original story was these beetles would come every year and breed in this breeding ground, and then eat this plant, this like kudzu-like plant. And then the next generation would keep the plant down. Well, a plastic fruit company had paved over their breeding ground, so these 2 beetles come back like Shriners ready to party, or 2 guys going to Comic-Con and nobody's there. And so they can't breed, so they're depressed. So that's kind of how it starts. And then they realize, oh, this plant is now taking over like a kudzu. And so it came down to Earl to, figure out how the problem was going to be solved. Well, right about that time I pitched that story and we were working on it, we got the note that we'd been canceled. So my story turned into the story where they keep solving the problem and making things worse, ultimately creating a nuclear winter by blocking up the volcanoes or exploding things in the volcanoes that sends cloud cover everywhere, puts the world in nuclear winter, and you end up here. But it was very in keeping with Jim's original idea was let's do a show about dinosaur thinking that, we're the biggest apex predator. We can do whatever we want. The planet's ours. And it's funny, people have been responding recently. It's going to come back out again on Disney Plus, I think.
Really soon, yeah.
Yeah, in fact, Funko just released, I think I have one here. Funko released little figures. Sorry, Kermit. This is one of them. This is Charlene. Oops. I'm not used to the flip. There we go.
There you go.
So they did the whole family. So I'm selling autographed ones on my website.
Which is KirkThatcher.com.
Yes, exactly. At the bottom of your screen. If you go there, I haven't put them up yet, but it's probably this weekend. Because I'm not going to buy, 100 of them and then sell them off. I'm going to buy them because they're, not the cheapest thing to ship like a photograph. But it'll probably be like $80 without $75, $80 without shipping.
Sure.
And I'll sign it and put whatever you want. I can sign the box or sign the Funko Pop. So I will start putting those up. And I also have some Greta Gremlins because I did her voice. I did a bunch of voices in Gremlins too, but Greta was the one that's the most memorable. So I'm doing some Funko Pop signings. But yeah, so it was back to the idea. It was about dinosaur thinking and how, there you go. Yeah. So I will be, God, you're fast. I will be signing those and selling them on my website. And it's cheaper for me to buy it and ship it to you than for you to buy it, ship it, and get it shipped back. So
yeah.
I'll probably do is take orders for like a month and then stop.
Do a mass exit. Yeah.
Buy a bunch of them, ship them all out. So people have been coming up to me recently and saying, "Oh my gosh, it still holds. The social issues are still important today," which is sad, I guess. The environment and rights for people who are differing sexual preferences, all that stuff was baked in there. War, why we go to war.
Yeah.
Women in the workplace, sexual harassment, all that
Dinosaurs,
stuff.
I mean, Dinosaurs was known for that, talking about social issues, taboo issues, things that just weren't discussed in the context of this, puppet show.
That was the great thing about puppets that Jim used to talk about, is that you do it with people, but what you can do with puppets is things that won't offend anybody, but will bring up, it's, like Aesop's fables or something, like, oh, it's a fox and a bird. So you're not saying that Italians are particularly, good with money or whatever your thing is. You can do it with these, not prototypes, but sort of placeholders for human foibles.
Well, it was the same secret of Star Trek's original success.
Yes, exactly.
Just that going to an alien world where there was a situation which was a thinly veiled allegory or metaphor for a similar situation that we had on Earth. And the trick was that you can't make it so dumb that the dumbest person gets it right away. To me, that's always the best. If people halfway through, oh my God, it's about us. Oh,
right. You did that like Shatner. It's about us.
Yeah.
These beings are black on white on the other, and they're white on one side and black on the other. It's ridiculous.
Riddle me this, Batman. I am white on one side and black on the other. Whoops, sorry, Frank. Anyway, so that and it was weird too, because when Dinosaurs first came out, so like, okay, it's this will be cutesy. It'll be one step up from Fraggles and one step below The Simpsons. That's what when I first saw it, I envisioned as. Then when I started catching the episodes, I was like, wait a minute.
That's what the critics. The first critical review after like 2 episodes at air was, I saved it. The quote was "Yabba dabba duh." It was just like, it was trying to be The Simpsons but with dinosaurs, which we were not. I mean, I think we got on the air because of The Simpsons' success, but we were. But The Simpsons tackles obviously social issues too. They just have a bigger world because it's drawn as opposed to we physically built it.
And there's still humor. You guys were really being surreptitious and almost mischievous, I think, in getting these elements in the show.
Definitely an archness to it. I like the episodes I wrote usually were just silly. I wasn't really much of a social justice warrior at the time. I did things like When the Food Goes Bad, Potty Training the Baby, The Invention of Halloween, stuff like that was silly and just fun. I mean, I kept saying, we're not really having fun with the fact that they're dinosaurs and they eat things in the fridge. We can play off the absurd practicalities of their life. So it was a good mix. I think kids loved it for that kind of stuff. And savvy adults were getting what we were saying.
So we have some people that have some comments.
Oh, okay.
Bob wants to send appreciation for you. Bob West.
Thank you, Bob. I just see these now.
He wants to tell you that we got to love the baby.
Oh, thanks from Hawaii. I love Hawaii, as you can tell.
And Matthew Woods wants to know who's your favorite Muppet.
Everyone asks me that. Out of the old Muppets, it would be Gonzo, and then out of kind of the new breed, I love Pepe and Bobo. Both done by Bill Beretta, who's a friend, but even if I never met the guy, I would love those characters because they're just uniquely their own thing, as were the original Muppets. But I think those are my favorites to write for and direct too, because when Bill is in those characters, he just vamps and it's hilarious. He just, he lives those characters. He's not doing like, an impression of Kermit or something. He created them. So I think that's probably a big part of it. And same with Dave Goelz. He created Gonzo. So he's not concerned about, is my impression right? And the guys who are doing, the characters that Jim and Frank and and Richard Hunt and Jerry now have done are doing a great job, and they're getting really good at thinking in those characters.
Did you see the Happy Land Murders?
I did. Yeah. I did I was involved in the first Punch Up draft on that. In fact, you can blame me for the silly string joke.
That was a great joke.
That was my one of the things I know I submitted. The movie changed a lot, but that one was because I think in terms of practical things and puppets, I said it's got to be silly string because that's hilarious. And can you be offended if it's silly string? It just kind of made sense. So
well, Bill did a great job on that.
Yeah. Oh no, he's amazing. Well, it was funny because he was playing it straight. He was playing it like an Al Pacino character, not like a nutty puppet, and that's harder to do. I think people. I mean, it did not get well received, but I think a lot of it was the ad campaign really doubled down on it's adult, and I think they really pushed that hard, and it was, but that wasn't all it was about. But it also had a little bit of too many crooks. It had been tried to be made for 15 years, and different actors have been attached, and different, Brian was always going to direct it. But I think even in the end, he felt like he'd been kind of railroaded by producers and stuff where, to get it made, you kind of sell off creative rights. So
right.
Yeah.
But, it was a fun script. When
going backwards in time, back to 87, I was we're gonna slingshot around the sun and go back to 1987. I was reading about something called Muppet Voyager that you worked on, and it was in a 1988 article in Channels, a magazine for television industry, mentioned an international Muppet project. There are children in the world who never heard of the Muppets in China.
Yes.
Yeah. And then you worked on it. You did all the work, but apparently it never came out.
That was the first thing I did with Jim. It was about 87. We were working on it. That was the first job, designing and helping brainstorm that show. I'd forgotten it was called Muppet Voyager. Yeah, it was about 4 or 5 aliens in a spaceship that was like a dirigible meets a spaceship. And it was teaching kids about different cultures. Just how, it's not Western culture that rules the world. It's just what we're used to. So it was really for Western kids to learn about what it's like to live in Africa and what they eat and what they do in Japan. And, there it is. That was, I forgot I have that book somewhere. Yeah, that was one of the first designs I did for the Muppets.
Commander Horseflash.
Horseflash, yeah.
Yeah.
That's deep. That is a deep cut. Yeah. So that's what got me the job designing characters for Muppets Tonight. I think the only one that lasted was there he is. It was Clifford. So his hair was supposed to be fishing lures, like purple fishing lure worms.
Oh wow!
Well, I thought it was just because they were really bouncy.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. No, I dig it.
And kind of look. I still always wanted to do that with a puppet. It's never happened, but someday. Someday. Yep, that was the computer. The idea was that the ship's computer had a personality and arms, so she could actually type her own questions in, which I thought was funny.
Well, Connor's going to bring up every awkward, thing you've worked on in your entire life. I've got photos that you thought were long erased from history.
As long as they're the tasteful nudes.
Nimoy had some had a strange fetish. I mean, Do you know about Nimoy's artistic nudes?
Oh yeah, I teased him about. We stayed friends until he passed away. In fact. So I had lunch with him once a year, usually, just, keeping in touch. And he invited me over to the house. Was just showing me his new place because he moved into a place right next to the Bel Air Hotel. And he showed me his photo studio, and there's all these pictures of curvy, naked women. And, I don't know if Zoftig's the right word. They weren't fat, but they were, at least not probably by Cosmos standards.
They were Roger Crumb type.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. They were thick.
Voluptuous and thick, yeah, exactly. And so I started laughing. I said, well, you've got the perfect retirement. You basically have women come to your house, take off their clothes, you get to take pictures of them. He laughed and was like, yeah, I enjoy the way the light works around the forms. I'm like, sure you do. Me too. Great sense of humor, but I was like, dude, you figured it out. You're spending your last 20 years just with naked women showing up at your house. You don't have to go anywhere. But he was great. He was an amazing person. I mean, I've been very fortunate. Jim Henson and Leonard and great people. I always say they felt like uncles, like favorite uncles that would.
I mean, there are worse people to have as mentors.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's talk about mentoring and stuff. Why don't you tell our audience the story of the first time you met Kevin Feige? He kind of confessed that you were actually one of his inspirations.
Yeah, that's a crazy story. So I go to Comic-Con like I used to do, like we all used to do, but every year, probably for 35 years. And my buddy, a friend of mine, is Michael Giacchino, the composer, and he'd done a few Marvel movies at this point. And so we were hanging out at Comic-Con. He said, "Hey, Marvel's having a little party. Do you want to go?" I said, "Yeah, I'd love to. I love Marvel movies. I love what they're doing." So I went in there, and there's probably 20, 30 people, and it was more like an executive dinner. It wasn't. I thought it was like a big Comic-Con party. It was like a private dinner for, I guess, all the producers and stuff, the execs at Marvel.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Give the governor a harumph.
Thumper. So went in there and walked in with Michael and our mutual friend David Silverman, who's helped create The Simpsons and all that. So we walk in and Michael goes, "Hey, everybody." And they're like, "Hey, Michael." It was like Norm at Cheers. "Hey," because they all knew him. And he said, I brought my friends along. This is David Silverman, who works on The Simpsons. And David waves, and they'll go, "Hey," I think he knew a couple of them. And then he goes, "And this is Kirk Thatcher, works on the Muppets." And they're like, "Hey, Kirk." It was funny. And then Kevin Feige walks up to me and goes, "Wait, you're the Kirk Thatcher?" And I thought he was joking. So I said, "What?" And I look at Michael. Is Michael just smiling? I'm like, "Are you punking me?" He goes, "Wait, the one from Star Trek 4 who did the song?" And I'm like, "Yeah." He said, he shook my hand. He goes, "You're the reason I got into the film business." I'm like, "What?" He said, "Yeah, you're the reason I got it, because I saw Star Trek 4. I was like 15, and I saw it, and your name was in the credits as the song and the producer and associate producer." He said, "I want to do that. I want to be a producer if that's what you get to do." And so I'd had a couple drinks at this point, and I said, "Well, then why aren't you hiring me to work on one of your movies?" And there we go. And that turned into that cameo. I did get hired to be a cameo. He loved the punk thing so much, so that was his homage. Is he put me in Spider-Man Homecoming, and my credit is Punk on Street. And I have one line of dialogue, and it's not even when I'm in shot. It's when this guy here, the other fellow, is watching Spider-Man on the roof, and he goes, "Hey, Spider-Man, do a flip!" And he does a flip. And I'm just watching with the boombox. And originally they were going to play "I Hate You" on it, and then Disney didn't want to pay for the rights. So there's not. I'm holding a boombox with no music coming out of it, which I thought was weird. And then my line is on Spider-Man. You just hear, "Not bad," and that was it. That was my little cameo. So I let my hair grow and kept my beard long for that. But it came about because I was having a meeting at Marvel, and Kevin was supposed to be there. Came in a little late because he had car trouble, and said, "Hey, I'm sorry I'm late." We talked for like 5 minutes. He said, "I'm going to New York tonight." I said, "Oh, I'm going to New York on Friday. What are you going for?" He goes, "Oh, we're finishing up Spider-Man." I said, "Oh, where are you shooting?" He goes, "Oh, we're shooting on location in the city." I said, "Awesome." He goes, you should, oh my God, we should put you in the movie." I'm like, "Wait, seriously?" He goes, yeah, you could just see his wheels turn. He's like, "You could be the punk on the street, or you could be the punk, and you'll have the boombox, and we'll play the song, and because we're shooting a scene in Queens." I'm like, "Okay." He goes, "Will you do it?" I said, "Sure, I can just change my flight to a red eye on Thursday night." So the next day, the producer calls me. He said, "Well, you got to be there at 4 a.m. for hair and makeup because we're shooting." And I'm like, "Okay." So I took the red eye. Well, I literally took the red eye, went to the hotel, threw my suitcase down, lay down for an hour, and then just showered and went to set. And I didn't really have to do much because I'd let my hair and beard get super funky. And yeah, that's how that happened. So I'm still talking with Marvel. It's a very slow process. They have a lot of other people that are very famous. I wish. I just want to shadow Taika Waititi for a whole film. That would be awesome. Because I've met him a couple times. He's incredibly charming, lovely guy. But I just love his sensibilities but his Marvel movies, but also his other stuff like Hunt for the Wilder People and Jojo Rabbit. Yeah, he's great. He's awesome.
The nice thing is the Marvel's one of those things that I'm willing to bet the farm and Grandma's farm is not going away anytime soon.
Well, yeah. So my new concept is to do something with them and the Muppets. So I have an idea that I've thrown around a couple friends and they think it's good. So I'm not going to say any more, but I think it would be good for the Muppets, whether it's good for Marvel or not. I mean, it kind of expands their universe without hurting it, if you know what I mean.
Sure.
Because they have Howard the Duck, which to me is a Muppet movie. If they did it right.
Yeah, and they joked around it with the cameos and Guardians and stuff, but I was just like, no, they could really do Howard the Duck correct.
Yeah,
they really could, and honestly, it would work much better as a streaming series than anything else.
Yeah, Kevin Smith was going to do it as a streaming animated series.
Yeah,
and then the whole Marvel thing restructured, and I guess it got killed. So I don't know if anything's happening with it or not. I now that things have rearranged, I should probably talk to them, but I think. They have bigger directors who have big fancy names.
Well, you're a big fancy director. You just directed some Muppets Now stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those were done really fast. I did about half of them, actually. All the Pepe the Game Show ones, all the Piggy Lifestyle, and all the Bunsen and Beaker Science episodes. So I think, all of those. At least one episode.
So Bunsen's very.
Wait, so you did all the Bunsen and Beaker.
Yeah.
All the Miss Piggy.
And all the Pepe Game Show ones. So it was a different format when we shot it. I mean, the contents, those episodes are all the same. The wraparound is what they really played with. So I haven't actually seen it yet.
Because I watched the first episode.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen the second one yet. And I didn't see your name.
That's because it was a non-union gig, so I had to do it under I have two pseudonyms.
Oh,
Rufus Scott Church, because what would a Kirk Thatcher do? Wait for it. He would Rufus Scott Church. Sure. And the other one is Crash Davenport. I think I've revealed too much. So it's Crash with a K, usually, sometimes spelled with C. So, I don't know how Disney can get away with shooting non-union stuff in LA.
Yeah, with the Muppets.
I know, yeah.
How's that possible?
It keeps the budget down, I guess.
Yeah, I guess.
It's not like streaming. Well, there's no residuals anyway at streaming, so I don't understand, and I just kind of...
Right.
Do it. So, yeah.
It just is what it is. So speaking of Muppets, you co-wrote Treasure Island.
Uh-huh. That was my... So Christmas Carol had come out while I was doing Dinosaurs, and I thought it was cute and fun and sweet, but it was so charming and like cute, like a little cutesy for me. So I said, let's do a big, which is great. There's nothing wrong with that. I said, but let's do a big rollicking adventure, like a Western or a pirate movie. And I really thought, I loved Pirates of the Caribbean growing up. And I thought, not the movies, obviously the ride. And I thought, pirates are just fun. You can have these crazy characters and you're out in the sea. And so we said, what's a classic pirate story? Well, Treasure Island. So Jerry and I, we sold them on that idea that I was really pushing for. Jerry was on board with whatever because he was going to write it with me. And then we went off and wrote it. I went to Jerry's place in Mendocino. We spent about 3 months writing it and handed it in, and then did rewrites. And then James V. Hart came in, and our original version started like Treasure Island, very much like the movie is now, except the main difference was there was no Jim Hawkins. Gonzo and Rizzo were Jim and Hawkins. They were basically, and there was no human kid. But Disney was like, no, we need to have a real kid because it's a kid movie. Kids don't like movies without kids in it, which I never understand. I think it's not true.
I totally don't think
if that were true. Santa Claus Conquers the Martians would be a giant hit.
Good point.
And Bugsy
Malone. Watch the kids on the original Muppet Show.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, we lost that battle, but it worked out fine because Gonzo and Rizzo were sidekicks, and they got all the comedy. And Kevin Bishop, who played Jim Hawkins, was lovely, a great actor, and still is. We're still friends. He's a big comedic actor now in England. And then, so it pretty much stayed that up to like Cabin Fever, which was my pitch for, because I said when I was a kid, and it was the middle of the movie, and it's the romance, or they're talking about, do I have any Tim Curry stories? Somebody just popped. I do. Nothing untoward. Just that he was a lovely guy. So after Cabin Fever, when they got to the island, it became like a Hope and Crosby Road picture, which was my pitch. It's like there was giant tiki statues that came alive. There was a volcano. Piggy was worshipped by the native pigs, but again, there was this tiki god that came alive and chased him down to the water. And so Jim Hart came in and basically kind of corralled it back to the original story. And my point was, and I still stand by it, I think at the time we made it, there had been 13 versions of Treasure Island made. And after the Charlton Heston one, where his son Fraser Heston did it, which is exactly the book. It's gorgeous. Heston is great.
It is a good version.
A great version of that movie. It's not cutied up or dumbed down. I said, why are we hewing so closely to the book? I mean, we shouldn't. And so, but James brought it back, particularly with the Long John Jim relationship, which is what the movie's about. And he's really good at that's what he does. He did Dracula for Coppola. He did Kenneth Branagh's Frankenstein. He takes classic books and he's done a bunch of other things. But so he did a third draft, and then Jerry and I came in and polished it for production. Once it was greenlit, we were there rewriting for whatever production needs were and adding and tweaking jokes. So somebody, let me just go some of the notes here. Creature Shop Challenge. You're welcome, Austin. I love that show. I wish that never went away. A kidless Muppet movie. Yes, Austin, me too. Someone asked, do I have any Tim Curry stories? No, I mean, we stayed friends afterwards. Nothing outrageous. He was just great. He and Billy Connolly were two like dream come trues. And so when you're writing the thing, you have ideas for who would be great. And both Tim as Long John and Billy as Billy Bones. In fact, we wrote Billy Bones because I was a big fan of Billy Connolly's stand-up. Mm-hmm. And he hadn't done a lot of movies at that point. And I just thought when we wrote that dialogue, I heard his voice in my head. In fact, at the early read-throughs where nobody was cast, I would read it as Billy, like, hey, Jim, Jimmy, Jim. And I remember when even Brian's like, I don't get it. Jimmy, Jim. Why is that funny? I said, it's funny if it's a Scottish accent. It's just funny. And also, if you know the Scots, they use Jimmy as like the way we do, hey, pal, or hey, Mac. Hey, Jimmy, what's up? It's like, what do you mean? Hey, buddy. So anyway, but yeah, I don't have any stories that are particularly, there he is. Tim told me something afterwards. He was doing a voiceover. For what's funny is we had used Tim in Dinosaurs as voices. He had done a voice of a Mink Stole for Charlene, and a number of voices. He's an amazing voice talent. Mm-hmm. And so we used him. So I'd met him, but very, very casually because I really wasn't hanging around the recording sessions. So when we cast him for Treasure Island, I said, I worked on Dinosaurs. And then he stays good. He's still friends with Brian Henson and stuff. So Brian would have parties and I'd see Tim. But yeah, I don't have any like Tim and I went out and got roaring drunk and, and painted a mustache on the Trafalgar Square statue.
I don't know that Marsha would have liked that.
Yeah, exactly. But he's great.
Erica, who asked that question, we are hosting a Tim Curry experience here at GalaxyCon on September 19th at 2 p.m. So head over to GalaxyCon.com and get details on that. We are offering private one-on-one chats with Mr. Curry, so you can talk to him and you talk to him yourself one-on-one
about Kirk and what he thinks about
exactly, and get back to us on that.
There's Billy. Oh, hey, we're still friends. We email each other now. He's back in Scotland. He was in New York. He's in LA. I developed a TV series for him, and then he just decided he didn't want to do TV anymore because he liked movies a lot better. But yeah, just both great. And British actors and comedians tend to have a more realistic view of they're not star driven like we are in the States. Even if they become a star, they're not. I don't think they believe the press. Whereas a lot of times here, and look. There's stars here are lovely people too, but I've tended to work a lot with British actors. And I don't know if I think partly it's because the Muppets were so huge in England. Much more beloved than they are here. There's fans here, but in England, it's kind of, they were generally loved. I always say the Muppets were loved in England the way Monty Python was loved here.
You produce the show, right? The live.
What show?
Did you do a Muppet thing in England?
The O2, we took the Hollywood Bowl show and we rejiggered about 33% of it to be specific for England, particularly London. And we did, so we've done 2 live shows, a Hollywood Bowl show, which is 3 nights in London, 3 shows, 2 nights and a matinee. And people loved it. It was fun because it was really like the old Muppet Show. We had silly acts like a bunch of wigs singing hair. And we had Bobby Moynihan, who I absolutely adore, a lovely human being. And he was a huge Muppet fan. And when he left SNL and we were doing this Hollywood Bowl show, I said, because we were looking for the hosts. I said, Bobby Moynihan would be perfect. And he couldn't have been happier. Right? You know, he was just, we were ecstatic to have him, and he was happy to be there. An amazing guy, and just a sweetheart to work with. Hey, I know that guy.
So
that was me shooting, I think that was in New York, shooting a commercial for a Japanese television company, I think.
So what do the Muppets mean to you? What?
Oh gosh, it's so multi-layered because it's not just a TV show for me. It's a whole culture and a company. Jim Henson, obviously, and his family I always feel like they're family. Like I said, Jim was like an uncle, and Brian and Lisa and Cheryl and Heather and Johnny all feel like, siblings or cousins. So in some ways, the Muppets and the Henson Company are inseparable for me. Now Disney owns the Muppets. So it's become more of a work thing, but back then it was like family. I mean, I worked with a company the longest I ever worked with anyone, which was 10 years solid, from Dinosaurs all the way through Muppets from Space. And then after that, I just became a freelancer and started directing the TV movies for them. I think what's interesting to me is how well received they are by people who have, foreigners, people who don't speak English, who love the Muppets because they translate well, but also people with emotional or developmental issues. They just kind of they communicate on a level that's below below isn't the right word because it sounds pejorative. That is an emotional. There's an attachment to them that I see experientially through other people. To me, I just loved them because I thought they were funny. And then I met Jim and the corporate culture, and then it became like family. But before that, I just appreciated them as funny and creative and all that. And I think the 2 words, creativity and joy. I think Jim was such a huge, creative force, but also he knew how to work with creative people. And that's the thing I find lacking the most in Hollywood. And it's sort of like saying, how come all basketball players can't be, Wilt Chamberlain or Shaq? Because they just don't have that. And Jim was incredibly blessed with not only, because there's other people who are really creative, but they don't work well with other people, or it's kind of their way or the highway. And Jim had this ability to gather creative people. And then he really was Kermit. The Muppet Show was, in a large part, or became, a microcosm of the corporate culture at Henson, which was Jim surrounded by a bunch of creative people like we were talking about. People go to cons, creative people who were not only fans of movies and props and puppets, but made them and brought all their delights to it and created this sort of world where you just got used to it. And then you go back out into the regular world of Hollywood, where it's, driven by marketing people and bankers, and it's all about finances and so much now marketing, it's the IP. Like, well, they'd rather take, Yogi Bear and make another version of it than develop something original. If it isn't a book and it wasn't already a hit thing, an animated series or something. They did an Emoji movie. But, as somebody who creates stuff and was spoiled by Jim, like, let's do this original idea. It's really hard to sell original ideas now. And another part of that is because the entertainment business is owned by 5 companies. and they're very vertical. Like it's, you if you don't play ball with them, you just, you're on YouTube doing your own thing, but that I think is what squeezed it and created YouTube. Is there's people doing their own shows. I mean, they don't have the budgets, but it's like the Annoying Orange is a perfect example. This guy was just doing it on his, computer at home, and it got picked up by, I forgot which network. And then they kind of, changed it and turned it into something else. And it lasted a season or two, and then it died. And I don't know what he's doing now, but it doesn't necessarily, there's a bottom line there that isn't there for creative people just trying to make something cool. And Jim was that. He set up a company to make something fun and cool to entertain.
Well, I think you kind of mentioned it earlier when we were talking about Christine McDonald. I mean, here's somebody who, you guys did a show. It's a great show. I think that it was not seen by as many people as it should have been seen by. I don't know.
They didn't know how. They didn't know how to promote it because it was half sitcom, half cooking show, or making show, which is what we said. Yeah, it's this hybrid. I said it's Martha Stewart meets Morticia Adams.
Right, and I have no interest in the cooking part. I
Right.
just watch it for the other stuff. And
That was the
enjoy it.
idea. We get the crossover. People liked, the Munsters and the Addams Family would like it as much as people who like Martha Stewart cooking.
Right, so you have Netflix has this thing with somebody who has a fan base, doesn't know what to do with it, but now she's creating her own content. And I'm looking at her Patreon. She's got 7,351 patrons,
Right.
that are helping her make her stuff.
So if each one of them gave her $20, she'd be making what, 15, 20 grand a month. So
Right.
I'm jealous in some ways, and I'm also really inspired by that. I don't make things every week like she does, but I want to do like a nutty. I keep saying a kid show, but it's more. I said it's called Captain Randy's Submarine. I'm gonna probably do a Kickstarter. This is my little promo.
But Kickstarter, Indiegogo,
Yeah.
Patreon,
Something like that.
all
But-
that.
Oh, go ahead.
No, all that stuff. I think you are correct in that the studios only want to go with the safe stuff.
Right.
They want to go for the IP. They want to do the things that they have. But there's so much stuff getting crowdfunded
Right.
that is
Well, even with the Muppets, because Disney owns Star Wars and Marvel. So if they're going to spend $200,000, $150,000 a movie, they're pretty much guaranteed it's going to make $800 million to $1 billion. If you spend $80 million on a Muppet movie, they made 130. Now, I have personal issues with what the movies were. I didn't think, they're not my cup of tea. I didn't write them. I didn't work on them. I'm talking about the last two, the Jason Segel and the
Right.
Muppets Most Wanted. I don't think they were bad movies, but I don't think they were. I don't see why people would, outside of Muppet fans, go see them. To me, Treasure Island was like, okay, it's a fun take on a classic thing. So I believe the Muppets do really well with parodies of genres. Like, do a spy movie. Let's do I wrote a Muppet Space Adventure 25 years ago. And was going to get made, but then Sony took over the Muppet franchise and made Star Gonzos, which became Muppets from Space. So I think that's just a better use of them, but that's my opinion, and I don't own them. I didn't own them.
With the parody stuff, and also I think that there's perhaps in the last decade or so, there's been a little bit of the bite taken out of the Muppets. I think that the core
Disney wants them to be safe. But then they did that ABC show, which made them like snarky, and didn't. Some people liked it, but I think the bite came out of they weren't edgy in a weird way. They were edgy in like, Fozzie's a kleptomaniac and Piggy's just a raging biatch, and they've lost the charm and the silliness.
Right, this is the point. It's a vaudeville. The group of vaudeville performers,
right.
putting on
To
a
me,
show.
they're Monty Python. Like Monty Python did Life of Brian and did Holy Grail. That to me is perfect. You get these funny characters put into this world, and we're going to see a new take on it. If you did and I've written a haunted house movie, a Ghostbusters Muppet movie, a sci-fi movie. Jerry Jewell and I were talking about a Western. But you put them in a genre we all know and love, and then, or a comic book movie like with Marvel. And I think that expands the base as opposed to just playing to the base. It's like Star Trek 2, Wrath of Khan, is the number one movie with Star Trek fans. Star Trek 4 is the number one Star Trek movie of the original series because it appealed to everybody. Mm-hmm. It wasn't a deep cut of like, you had to know about Khan, you had to know this, you had to know that. It was like, oh, they're in our world. That's fun. And I think the same thing with the Muppets. If you don't really care if Kermit and Piggy are married or not, if you don't know that New Zealand, names his fish, those movies just kind of like, oh, okay. Like it doesn't appeal to a broader audience. So the stuff I want to do is go, hey, it's the Muppets, make fun of blah.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that is most memorable to me is that the Star Wars stuff where Gonzo is Darth Vader.
Yeah. Well,
and,
Muppets in Space. We did. I'm going to spill the beans. We did 2 Pigs in Space shorts that were Star Wars parodies. And Mark Hamill was going to be in everything. And Lucasfilm said, no, you can't.
Oh,
and I'm
no.
like, what do you mean we can't? Well, because Disney had just bought Lucasfilm. We were going to roll it out right around the same time as the first JJ one, Force Awakens.
Yeah.
And I called Howard Rothman because I knew him when he was still there because we'd worked at Lucasfilm back in the 80s and he was still with it. And I said, why won't you allow us? I mean, first of all, I was like, they have no right. Disney owns both. We can do it. It's parody. And he said, we just don't want people to think that Star Wars, we don't want kids to think Star Wars is funny, which is the same reason why they killed the Seth Green stuff they were doing. There was a whole animated Star Wars show that was getting developed or was in production when Disney bought it and Lucasfilm, and they killed it. So the same thing with the Muppets. They didn't want people to think it was funny, but we did. Gonzo has reprised his role as Dark Helmet, or no, that was Spaceballs. What do you call him?
Darth Vader.
What's that? Well, Darth Vader, but I forgot what we called him. Dark Nader.
Okay, Darth. Oh, yeah, Darth Nader.
Yeah, and Luke was Luke Skyhopper, and Piggy was Princess Leia, and we did 2 parodies of that. Yeah, so we kind of brought back, and Mark was going to be in it, but as Mark, not as Luke Skywalker. And yeah, we ended up taking Mark out and shooting him anyway, but they've never aired because Lucasfilm said you can't, and obviously Disney doesn't want to piss off the 800-pound gorilla. So that kind of bummed me out. But like exactly that. I think because we did shoot 3 Pigs in Space. And yes, the Star Wars Christmas special does exist. We should do the Muppets do their version of that with Miss Piggy as B. Arthur.
B. Arthur. Oh my God.
It'd be something. Yeah, I over the years, Lucasfilm has been notoriously turbulent about any hint of not even irreverence, but just anything that's just remotely off the grid. Another friend of ours, Peter David, the author, he sat with us before. He said that he had a line in a Star Wars novel that he wrote where he said, Lando giggled at this. And no. There's no giggling in Star Wars. That was a note he got. There's no giggling in Star Wars, regardless of the situation or the character or anything. Yeah. So, yeah. Well, but this thing exists, right?
Yeah, I can tell the jokes. So Fozzie was Chewaka Waka. Mm-hmm. Pepe was Prawn Solo. Bunsen and Beaker were Beaker was R2, and Bunsen was 3PO. But I forgot what their nicknames were or what their robot names were. Piggy was Leia. Was that it? I think that was mainly it. And I have a picture somewhere of my favorite was Fozzie as Chewaka Waka because they just brushed his mustache. They kind of brushed his hair and gave him a bandolier of bananas. And yeah, and of course they come on the Star Trek or the Swine Trek, and cause havoc. But it was really fun, and I was like, really, that's what you're gonna kill that? So if I ran the railroad, I would do more of that. I would have Muppet Marvel mashups, Muppet Star Wars mashups, Muppet Westerns, and kind of crank out, about every year, every 18 months, and do them for like $30 million. Every TV movie I did, my biggest budget was $8 million. My lowest was $5 million. And you can do it for that. And we did Wizard of Oz for $10 million as a musical with puppets. So, even it's remarkable that
you did all those videos that went viral.
Yeah. All the YouTube videos, Bohemian Rhapsody, OK Go doing the Muppet theme song. One of my favorites is Stand By Me with Carl, Big Mean Carl and the Bunnies. If you haven't seen it, it's my sense of humor. Well, the Muppets used to blow each other up. That's the other thing.
Yes.
people are like so precious on. There's a large group of fans who think that they're somehow like Davy and Goliath. That they represent good, solid religious morals, and the Muppets shouldn't, And I'm like, they're not anti anything, but they're inclusive. The Muppets wouldn't kick someone out for being a weirdo or being different. They're inclusive of everybody. So people are like, oh, the Muppets would not, they would never be mean or say anything untoward. It's like, no, they used to blow each other up. I mean,
and that was the thing about it as a kid, because there was, and Mike and I have talked to this before in our late night rambles, like the original Muppet Show, there was a hint of danger. Anything could happen.
Right.
Anything.
Right.
There could be any act that goes on up there. Anything could go sideways. And there was just that.
Anarchy.
Yeah.
There was a Muppet anarchy that, and partly it's due to the format. The show was a wild and woolly, vaudeville show, where the movies, there it is. Yeah, the classic Muppet stuff. So what happened was when the movies took off, particularly after the first one, because the Muppet movie, the first one's pretty anarchic. They go all over the place. There's crazy cameos. People forget, like, there's Mel Brooks is a brain surgeon, and James Coburn is a bad guy in a Western saloon, like all these different environments, and they were parodies of genres, but it had a sweetness and a heart to it, which you obviously need. But then the movies became like, are Piggy and Kermit Get Married? And then Caper was probably the most classic Hollywood movie parodying Caper movie, but with big musical numbers. And then Take Manhattan was a bit smaller and was kind of a mess. I mean, it just sort of ends with this wedding thing. So I was like, great, Piggy and Kermit Married, we can kill that story. Well, the fans really love that, but the problem is the fan base isn't that big. I think the rest of the world doesn't care. I think they want to see.
Well, I think you nailed it earlier when you talk about Star Trek. I'm a huge Star Trek fan, love Star Trek, and you're right. Star Trek 2 is the best Star Trek movie if you're a Star Trek fan. But everyone I know who isn't a Star Trek fan saw Star Trek 4.
Right.
Now, you can talk about Undiscovered Country, Star Trek 6, all you want, but we saw it.
Right.
Except the fans.
And look, the other thing I always say about the Muppets, and I've been in arguments with the development executives, I said the Muppets are the circus coming to town. You don't go to the circus and go, oh, I want to know what the tightrope girl thinks about that clown because they used to date. But you're like, no, I want to see things blow up and lions not eat people. And the Muppet movie, you don't go like, I want to learn valuable lessons about human relationships. You want to see something that's fun. I mean, Muppet Treasure Island is exactly what I think a Muppet movie should be. It's chaotic. It's nutty. It follows a story. It doesn't have to be a classic literature tale, although it helps because then you can kind of make fun of something people already know. But yeah, I think, I mean, again, this is my 2 cents. And I know Jim was never precious about the Muppets. He wanted them to be fun.
In the first movie, Robin goes to Kermit, is this how it really happened? And Kermit's basically like, sort of. You're taking license.
Yeah, and they were very loose about canon. Now there's Muppet canon. Oh, Kermit would never do that. Kermit said this once, so it has to be,
Yeah, it's like, trust me, I'm a comic continuity canon nerd, and right. I'm just like, you can't apply that to the Muppets. I mean, like you said before, it's like applying it to a Monty Python movie. Oh no! And they wouldn't do this in Life of Brian because Graham Chapman's character wouldn't have.
Right. Yeah. You're there for they strictly are entertainment. If you're trying to tell a valuable lesson, I mean, obviously there has to be a moral or some kind of core, but it's really people go to see the circus. They want to see crazy stuff. I mean, the thing that people most talked about in the first or second month was the Kermit riding a bicycle, and then everyone riding a bicycles in or is it Manhattan or not Caper, but when there's like 20 Muppets on bicycles, if the biggest thing people talk about is characters riding bicycles, it's not about the story as much. And
Caper, Caper can't be in any continuity. That's early enough.
Right.
It's just tell a good story. Take the characters, tell a good story.
But have fun with it. In other words, puppets sitting around talking is death. I mean, Frank Oz would say that. Too much taka. Let's, boil it down and have them. He said, Frank, an amazing treasure trove of good advice, was the funniest thing in the world is watching a puppet think. Because that's when they come alive. When Kermit's like, reacting to something. I mean, Kermit was a great reactor. If you didn't have Kermit, it would just be puppets screaming, yelling, and jumping around. Mm-hmm. But having someone go, that's crazy, it grounds it and makes you go, okay, I get that he thinks it's crazy. So it's a good format. I just the good news is, I don't mean to sound super negative about them. This the new division that's now running the Muppets, which have only had it for a year. They're part of Imagineering now. They're, first of all, the two main people are from Australia and England, so they're already kind of have more of a love for the characters than a lot of Americans do.
Cool.
That's just cultural. They appreciated the nuttiness more, and so they're really trying to kind of get back to what, at least more what I'm saying is, not let's do a rom-com with Kermit and Piggy, but let's do something, fun and crazy and wild and have that element, but still have a good story. So my hopes are up. It's just with this we were going to do we were working on a TV series and a TV movie or a special for Disney Plus when COVID shut everything down.
Well, hopefully we can.
So if everyone sends me $100, then I can make sure that'll happen in the next 10 years. That's all.
Everybody, email and write.
KirkThatcher.com. Just buy $100 worth of stuff. You'll get a picture. You'll get some advice.
Buy the pop figures.
Buy some pop figures. I'm doing consulting on scripts and things. I know we're over time, so I'll probably shut up. But if you go to the website,
we're good.
It's okay. Well, no.
No, we go forever. It's fine. We go as long as you want.
Okay. So I am doing consulting on. I've had probably 10 or 12 people sending me scripts or outlines for shows, or just shooting the breeze with me about development. Because I love, one of the things that Jim would do is he'd have these group meetings where he'd get 10 or 12 of us, and puppet builders and writers and directors and the art department, and we'd brainstorm ideas. And that was it. It was just a game of hot potato with ideas, and just there was no bad ideas. It was just, and I miss that because it doesn't really happen. Disney probably does it with executives, and once in a while, when something's greenlit, we'll do that. But it's like for a day or half a day. We'll all sit around and go, okay, we're going to do this show. Let's all talk about it. Okay, time's up. No, we're not going to pay you anymore. So, but we'll take it from here. Where Jim would have it for like a 3-day, the company would have these 5-day charrettes, they call them, where get together every day and brainstorm all day, and they'd provide lunch, and it was great. And I think I miss that, so I'm selling that as a veteran of brainstorming with some pretty creative people, brainstorming anyone's idea. I'm talking to someone this week, this Friday, about a documentary on a particular political subject, to just brainstorm with them. It's not about puppets. I mean, it can be puppets or comedy, whatever, but it can be about anything. It's just a creative sounding board. Yeah. Having done it for 40 years. So that's the other thing, besides buying, autographs or autographed Funko Pops and some artwork. You can also hire me as a consultant for half an hour, and a dance partner, but that's, you have to be in LA, and it's pretty pricey.
And a fashion consultant.
Fashion consultant, yes. I will look at your Hawaiian shirt and go.
And you'll judge their tiki collection.
Yeah.
Hey, I got the thumbs up.
You match the background, Patty, so you get extra points for that.
Yeah, that was what I said. Yeah.
So we'll consult about tobacco, various pipe tobaccos.
Mm-hmm. So indeed. But the whole fact of the matter is, again, you've had this extraordinary career, and again, like at the very beginning, production. So the nice thing is, not only can you write, but you could also help guide people, because we all know when people try their hand at screenwriting and stuff, they always go too big. They want to write a gargantuan thing that's going to be budgeted at $3 billion, which is never going to happen. So I imagine you give them a little insight to try to bring it down to a realistic, sellable property.
Yeah, I mean, and that's kind of baked into when I'm writing too, is you bring along your production experience going. I always say having Kermit run down the stairs and pick up the phone is 3 hours to shoot it. But if you say Kermit finishes running down the stairs and we cut to the phone in his hand, suddenly you can do that in half an hour. So and that's the other part of it. I can provide production, I don't know, just advice. I'm like Lucy. I'm Lucy and Charlie Brown, psychiatric advice. 25 cents. Or you can just ask me questions about stuff that you don't want to publicly ask me. Bob West says, take my money. Thank you, Bob. Are you a millionaire? Do you have a gorgeous sister who's a millionaire who's looking to get married and support the arts?
Well, I don't know if you know, or if our audience knows too. That's Bob West. He's also done some puppeteering work as well. He was the voice of a character called Barney the Dinosaur, which some of our audience may remember.
I met Bob at GalaxyCon.
Yes,
in Louisville. I love Louisville, by the way. What a great city. There he is.
That's Bob. And yeah, Bob. And that was actually kind of his side gig. Bob's main job now is graphic design work. Does a lot of titles and stuff, TV and whatnot. So like I said, we ran the little earlier. He did the ABC Muppets show in the 90s.
And we go to the same barber. Oh, I saw that. I didn't make the connection. I'm sorry, Bob. I know I met you that high, but that's very cool. And I love your quote about the Star Wars Christmas special.
Yes.
Although that was made in 1978, I guess.
At this point, just drop it. I've always said, bring in the guys from Mystery Science Theater to do a riff track on it and just let it loose.
Well, they probably could. I mean, on the YouTube thing.
They already have. Actually,
I'm hell bent on the Muppets Star Wars Christmas special.
There you go.
With Miss Piggy doing B. Arthur's role and Fozzie doing Chewbacca and.
That's right. But who do we get for Lumpy and Nala?
Oh, Lumpy. God.
Lumpy. George has a sense of humor. I will say that. In fact, that's one of the things I find missing in the later Star Wars films. The prequels had it, but it was a little unwieldy. But I think they lost some of the charm of particularly the first two, with the humor, just in the silliness of it. I mean, it wasn't played silly, but when you put a character in a situation, like Minox or whatever, and a lot of the humor came from 3PO and Han Solo just being like, never tell me the odds. I mean, it's funny. It's not comedy, but it's funny. And I think they started taking themselves too seriously. It's my biggest beef with Jim Cameron movies. There's not a sense of humor anywhere, except in Aliens. Bill Paxton. Oh, you guys, game over, man.
Yeah.
You guys notice we just got our asses kicked. That's the point in the movie. You're like, yes, somebody's saying what a normal person would say.
Yeah. True. Well, Jim Cameron, he's filming 2 through 5 of Avatar?
I don't know. He's just, I guess he's decided I'm just going to make them all and retire. No, I love his movies, but you're like, Jesus, nobody, even in Avatar, nobody goes, Jesus Christ, these guys are tall and they're blue. I mean, just somebody kind of state the obvious.
So, all right. So I think we have gone. We've kept you long enough.
We're dissing on Avatar. All right.
Well, we better go before we get in trouble.
The joke about Avatar is it's made the most money and nobody can remember a damn thing about it. And nobody's a huge fan. Like, there are people who are huge fans of Star Trek, Star Wars, James Bond, Muppets, whatever. You find me one person who's a rabid fan of Avatar.
But weren't there some that were like, I want to move there? There was like a whole psychological condition for like a year. People like, I want to be there. And they were very melancholy. It was some weird, I mean, maybe it was just 100 people and they got a lot of press. But
I've never seen an Avatar cosplayer at any of the shows. And I always tell everybody, like, ask Mattel about how well Avatar did, because they couldn't give those toys away.
Wow. Well, there you go. I think that's where we'll end on.
All right. So,
didn't do it right.
So KirkThatcher.com.
Yes,
get
please.
your brainstorming sessions, your autographs, your Funko Pops.
Yes. And just general bad advice about life.
Okay. We'll have to do this again.
I would love to. I hope to see everyone in Louisville and Florida whenever we're all back and able to actually be in the same room. I love Comic-Con.
Hopefully soon. And stay with us. We'll hang out backstage in a minute.
Cool, man.
Is there anything else anybody wants to say? Patty, you got anything?
This weekend we got some great stuff coming up. We've got hold on, I'll pull it up.
Tell us,
I
Patty.
can't even remember.
What's that?
Say, what do we got coming up this weekend, Patty? Why don't you tell our viewers?
I had it. Lots of great stuff. Go to GalaxyCon.com if you haven't already.
Oh my God, you're the worst pitchman ever.
Epic fail. Epic fail.
I was looking at it. For August 14th, we have Achievement Hunter rejoining us Good Friday, and Saturday, Once Upon a Time.
Stop for a second. Stop. This week on GalaxyCon Live, August 14th, we have Achievement Hunter. August 15th, Once Upon a Time with Jennifer Morrison, Kristen Bauer, Emily DeRaven. August 16th, My Hero Academia cast members. That's what we got this weekend, Patty.
Yes.
Thanks, Mike.
And Patty's the host of those things.
You got to understand, my focus is on whoever I'm with right now at this moment. My focus is on the amazing Kirk Thatcher.
On Captain Kirk? All right. I'll see you guys backstage.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody, joining in. Thanks for those great questions, those comments. We will see you next week, if not sooner.